Bound for Glory was last Sunday. I was in attendance. It was my first Impact show in person in a very long time. I used to go to these shows pretty routinely. They would have TV tapings at the Manhattan Center. I went to a bunch. I was in the front row for a bunch of those, and usually always had fun at the Impact shows. So Bound for Glory was back in New York. This time it was in Queens at the Melrose Ballroom building that MLW has been running quite a bit lately. Not a very big building. It's like a concert venue. It's very intimate. If I had a guess on what the capacity was, I would be stunned if it was 1,000. I mean, it probably is somewhere in that 500 to 700 range would be my guess. Uh, Maybe it's more if you have a concert because you don't have the giant ring down on the floor. So not a very big building. Although the way it was set up and production-wise, it looked great. I thought overall, decent show. I can't say I was blown away by the show. It was decent overall. I thought the opening tag team match was fantastic. That was Rich Swann and Willie Mack against Matt Sydal and Ethan Page. I thought that was, to me, from what I saw, that was the best match on the show. Joey Janela apparently was the original choice to answer Eli Drake's open challenge. We were all wondering, is it going to be Chris Jericho? Is it going to be Big Cass? When James Ellsworth came out, I thought for sure they were setting up for Big Cass to come out and kick his ass. And I actually would have been okay with that, even though I wasn't enamored with the idea of it being Big Cass, but, it turned out not to be him. Ellsworth came out, and then Abyss came out. He had just been inducted the night before into the Hall of Fame. And so he got a nice, a nice little spot for himself on the Bound for Glory card and got a very respectful reaction. It wasn't a match. He basically just put Eli Drake through a table and they played his music and he left. So it was disappointing in that I think people were setting themselves up like, oh, who's it going to be? Is it going to be a big name, a big indie name? And, when it turned out to be Ellsworth and then Abyss, kind of a letdown. Tessa Blanchard and Taya, I thought, had a very good match. I really don't see anybody else on that roster, and this is not a knock on Taya, because Taya is good too, but I don't see anybody else on that Impact women's roster right now in the Knockouts division, in looking at the roster, who would be on Tessa's level. And I hope that one day we get to see her and Charlotte have a big pay-per-view match. Because to me, that match just sells itself. First of all, I think it would be a good match. And second of all, I think it just sells itself, right? Two Horseman daughters, one-on-one. I think it would be great. No need to see her, in WWE right now. I'd be more worried than anything else, I think, if she went there right now, just looking at the way some of the other women are being lost in the shuffle. But one day, I think that could be a big match. Who knows? Maybe Charlotte comes to Impact. I'm just kidding. The Concrete Jungle match, that was a mess. It was a mess largely because the friggin' ring was falling apart. The boards were coming loose. I thought one of the guys was going to fall between the cracks, like the blob or something, and get sucked underneath the boards. But that's probably, I assume, why the match only went about 10 minutes. It was a very unique idea in theory. In practice, it was very rough, as I'm sure you could tell if you were watching on Fight TV or however you may have been watching the show. Main event with Austin Aries and Johnny Impact was pretty good. That work shoot stuff at the end was just dumb. I guess, look, it got people talking, and this is a promotion right now that could use people talking about them right now. So in that way, it worked. But it's one of those things where if it's real, if you allow yourself to believe that it's real, and I don't believe it is, but let's say it's real, it's a shoot, and right, and again, there is not a doubt in my mind that everything Aries has done, everything he is currently doing, is all part of the work that they've got planned here. But if it's real, then at worst, it's unbelievably disrespectful to Johnny and to the company. For him to pop up after the finish like that and no-sell it and flip everybody off and just walk out. If it's a work, then it ruined what should have been a nice celebratory moment for Johnny at the end of their supposedly biggest pay-per-view of the year. And what it also did is it just took people out of the moment. And it just, it makes wrestling feel fake when during a show, and it is, but when during a show, you don't want to be reminded of that, right? And it happens a lot lately because people get cute and they use insider terms, and it's just something. And we saw, Russo would do a lot of that in WCW, and he did that, I assume, because he just wanted to get people talking. In his mind, that's what we have to do. So that you end up with things like the Bash at the Beach incident and all that, lame stuff. But it just takes you out of the moment. It takes you out of the show. I feel like when you're watching the show, it should be like a movie where you are so immersed in what is going on. You're not actively sitting there thinking about the fact that, hey, it's a show, or hey, that's fake, or this is, whatever. You don't want to be actively thinking about that in that position at the end of your big main event. And we'll see what happens. I mean, they probably feel like it got people talking, and maybe it'll lead to some more buzz and some more eyeballs on the product. I really, other than, hey, it got people talking about Impact, I can't think of literally not one good reason for that to have happened. Now, if it's a work, and for the people who have, been posting on my timeline and everything, I will say this, is a lot of people who buy into the fact that it isn't. I don't believe that to be the case. They're doing a good job, I will say, of covering all their bases to make it feel more authentic. According to a report I saw on SE Scoops, when the pay-per-view ended, some of the talent backstage felt like they were being worked by management. One person described it as a move that the old TNA regime would have orchestrated, not the new one. When the show was over, they were actively shopping the Aries story to TMZ, trying to get them to cover it after they had covered the back and forth previously with Aries and Johnny and Taya. And Johnny and Taya were on TMZ, I think, the week before. Petey Williams, who is an agent for Impact, has claimed that Aries' contract with Impact has expired. He is no longer under contract to Impact. He is a free agent. He was not at the TV tapings those next 2 days. They taped, TV at the Melrose Ballroom Monday and Tuesday. He was not there. This is all apparently due to Austin Aries wanting to do a Brian Pillman loose cannon type gimmick. If you remember, when Pillman did it in WCW, Eric Bischoff gave Pillman, to make it more real, he actually had Turner, executives, Turner management, fax Pillman a legitimate legal release, early release from his contract, for the purpose of making everything, now, this is back in an age where I guess the internet was a thing, but there really wasn't social media and stuff. So I'm looking at that and I'm thinking to myself, how necessary was it for Bischoff to even do that? Because who would even know? Who would even see this document? Like, now Pillman would be on Twitter tweeting that thing out. He'll scan it in, he'll tweet it out, he'll put it on his, his My Book and face. I was just watching a Law and Order episode the other day, and they either can't or they won't use the real names of Facebook and Twitter. So they're like, yeah, I checked his profile out on My Book, and I'm like, excuse me? It's like, really? You can't say the word Facebook? I guess not. So yeah, if Pillman had a My Book and all these different accounts now, he'd be posting that shit on there, and I'm like, was there really a need to fax him a legitimate release? Because what ended up happening was, yeah, he went to ECW and that was part of the plan, and you make it feel like he's this rebel free agent. But then he went and he was negotiating with WWE as well, and he ended up taking the WWE deal and he went with them. And he was legally able to do so because he had in his hand a legitimate release from Turner. So that was a very weird situation. I think it'll be pretty hard to replicate that, but that, I guess, is what he is going for. And so now maybe he'll end up doing some matches in Ring of Honor to really sell this in other promotions. We'll see. It's smart in this way. Aries already had a reputation for being something of a dick. There's been plenty of stories about him in the past and how he carries himself, going back to his ROH days. If you're going to do something like this, why not do it with somebody who already, rightly or wrongly, has a reputation for being a jerk? Because that way it's more believable to think that, hey, you know what? Maybe it's a work, but yeah, I could see Austin Aries doing something like that. Right? It's better to probably do that with somebody like him. It would not be a stretch to think that he would be a jerk for real. If the rap on him over all these years has been that the guy is a jerk. But I just think there were other ways to do this, rather than shitting on the finish of your own main event.